Thank you, Stefan. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our open house today on shamanic energy medicine. These are very chaotic times that we're living in. Extraordinarily chaotic. All of our points of reference are gone. The old maps don't work anymore. We don't know what destination or even what destiny they're leading us to. So it's never been more important than today to follow our soul's calling. For the shamans, this is described as the journey of the hummingbird journey, to learn stillness in flight, and to learn to feed only from the nectar of the flowers, not from the garbage that we're being fed by the news media or the family dramas that we happen to be stuck in or working on, but to really go for the nectar. And to begin our presentation, I'd like to invite you to join me in a breathing practice. We have one of our students who was retired from the U.S. military, and he was saying to me, we are taught this breath called box breathing. It's the 4-4-4 breath, and he was a member of a very elite special forces team. He says, when people are shooting at you, you're under a lot of stress, so you need to be able to reset your fight or flight system so that you can make clear choices. And today, there's never been a more important time than ever where we need to make very clear choices. And I said, this is an ancient shamanic breathing practice. We call it the 4-4-4 breath. Some places in the Amazon, they call it the little death breath, because it teaches you to go into infinity. It's the last breath that you want to take before you return to the world of spirit. But it's amazingly valuable to bring us to that peaceful state, that hummingbird state that can hover in midair in perfect stillness, in perfect quiet, to find the perfect quiet despite everybody shooting at you or despite the chaos that may be going on in the world. Ancient shamanic breathing practice. The U.S. Navy SEALs do it, and they think that they discovered it. Actually, it's a very, very old way that we have to make sense of the world, to be able to discern the journey that we are on in the same way that the hummingbird is able to discern their destination. They travel from Brazil to Canada, and they don't have any maps. They just know that they have to go on the quest, on the hummingbird quest, which is the journey of the hero. So we'll begin with a breathing practice. But before we do a breathing practice, I'd like to invite you to see how many times you breathe per minute. So I'm going to time us. I'm going to give us a start, and I want you to count your breaths to see how many breaths you are breathing per minute. Ready? Now. Just simply count your breaths. Ordinary breathing, regular breathing. See how many breaths you take a minute. We're going to do this for 30 seconds and then multiply by 2. 10 more seconds. 5. And stop. And multiply this by 2 and you'll see how many breaths you take per minute. For most of us, it's between 10 and 15 breaths per minute. But with this breathing practice, you're going to be breathing 2 to 3 times a minute. The very slow and gentle breath that can allow you to step into what shamans call hummingbird consciousness. The consciousness of this incredible little creature that is not even supposedly able to fly, but that can migrate from Brazil to Canada and back. The kind of breathing that will take us into the very, very deep state of relaxation so that we can enter and embark upon the hero's journey, not the victim's journey. This is the journey that the powers that be would like us to remain in, victimized, medicated, in feeling in danger, lost. With this breathing practice, you're going to notice how your instinct, that very same instinct that guides the hummingbird to the flowers, is able to guide you to respond to your soul's calling. So we're going to be inhaling to the count of 4, holding the breath to the count of 4, exhaling to the count of 4, and holding the breath empty to 4. And let's begin with a deep and gentle yogic breath. An exhale and another one. And now let's inhale to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold to 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. And empty to 4. 2, 3, 4. Inhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold to 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. And empty to 4. 3, 4. Inhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold to 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. And empty to 4. 2, 3, 4. Inhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold to 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. And empty to 4. 3, 4. Inhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold to 4. 2, 4. Exhale to 4. 2, 3, 4. And empty to 4. 2, 3, 4. And deep inhalation, deep cleansing breath now. You are breathing at the rate of 2 to 3 breaths per minute. And deep breath. And notice how you were not running out of air. You had plenty of air. But today's hectic staccato life rhythm is keeping us in this panting breath of switched on fire, fight or flight. And today more than ever, with all of the crises that are happening in the world, war, economic crises, collapse of banks, global climate change, it's important that we come to that quiet inner space where we can hear that soft and faint voice of our soul. This is the voice of the divine. They say that you want to catch God on a whisper and not with the 2x4 over your head. So the hummingbird journey is one of 4 paths of the shaman's medicine wheel, beginning with the south, where you learn to shed the past the way you shed your skin. The serpent sheds her skin. Mother, sister serpent, we call on you. Teach us to shed the past the way you shed your skin. Not little by little, the way we like to do it in the West, where we get to work on our individual issues, but all at once. Today we have to even shed our collective past, that past of human history that has been the nightmare of humanity, of violence and of war. We need to shed that collective past. And along with it, our personal history, so we're not the product of our history anymore. We're the product of our becoming. And then in the West with the jaguar, we discover jaguar medicine, the journey beyond fear and beyond death. And we learn that we can call on the spirit of the jaguar. Mother, sister jaguar, come and teach me your ways. Let me explore those dark and hidden places of my psyche, of the way that you travel through the Amazon fearlessly, because the jaguar has no enemies, it has no predators, and it comes to show us the journey beyond death and, and into infinity. And then we discover the journey of the hummingbird, the path of the hummingbird. I know that for some of you in Europe, you don't have hummingbirds, but stay with the metaphor for a moment. This is the medicine of the ancient Americas. And the hummingbird is the one that says yes to the call from spirit. You say yes to your calling without waiting to have the map and the clarity of where it is that I'm going. I love that story of when the Israelites left Egypt, when Moses said to the Pharaoh, "We want to be free. We want to leave the bondage and the slavery that we've been living in, as many of us have been living in for much of our lives. We're ready to go on this journey into the unknown." And the Israelites left with the Egyptian armies behind them. And they came to the Red Sea. And the legends of the Kabbalists say that before the Red Seas parted, the Israelites had to be in the water up to their noses. They weren't testing the water with their feet to be sure that it was warm enough, or looking at the other shore to make sure that there was someone there with a warm towel waiting for them. They said yes, and then the waters parted. So responding to your calling doesn't mean that you necessarily know what your destination is going to be, but you know that you're going towards your destiny. And this is absolutely the key here. Now, the hummingbird journey is a journey of the hero. In the West, we have been educated to being victims. I had a very anxious call from a dear friend of mine who had just received a diagnosis. A diagnosis is a kind of black magic that the system does on people, because you get a diagnosis and then she was told, "You have to go into surgery tomorrow, right away. We've got to deal with this. We've got to pull it out of your body." And we are now in the grip of fear, and we become a patient. We're no longer a hero. So be careful with diagnoses, by the way. Don't accept them. Remember, you're not a disease. We're not illnesses. We are living, luminous Buddhas that can have miracles happen if we believe in the miracles. So we live in a society that's trained us to be victims. And the hummingbird journey is about becoming the hero of your own story, not the victim. The shamans say that you can either have what you want, or you can have the list of reasons why you can't. And many of us are taught since we were little that we were going to be okay if we just understood the list of reasons why we couldn't, and we kept working on them really, really hard. Well, working on why you can't do what you dream of doing is not going to take you to your dreams. That requires that hummingbird journey. And the hummingbirds that migrate from Brazil to Canada don't sit around saying, we don't have enough wings. We were not made for flight. And there are no flowers that we can feed on until we get to Cuba. What do we? No, they embark on the journey. They say yes to the quest, to the calling, without being certain of the destination, but living deeply with the understanding that they are following their destiny. And this is the moment for us to make that kind of call, to say yes to our calling. The shamans in the Andes, where I did my training, I was originally trained as a medical anthropologist, traveling through the Amazon. And curiously, I was initially funded when I was a graduate student by big Swiss pharma. They wanted to discover the next cure for cancer, or the first cure for cancer, for dementia, and for heart disease, the things that are killing Westerners. And they funded me to go into the backwaters of the Amazon. I remember going to villages that had never seen a light-skinned person before, and the children would come running to me and they would rub my skin to see if the white dirt would rub off. And after many months in the Amazon, I came back to the people that funded me, and they said, what root, what bark, what leaf, what bush did you discover that heals cancer?" And I said, "I didn't discover anything, because they have no cancer, no heart disease, and no dementia, no Alzheimer's, until they begin to eat like us and live like us and be disconnected from nature and from their calling and from their own inner nature. And then they begin to get sick like us and to die like us." So responding to our calling today is essential. But when I was in the Amazon, I did discover the great cure, which was actually the practice of prevention, which was energy medicine. The understanding that we have an energy field around our physical body that organizes the physical body into health or disease. And the field stores the imprints of trauma, but not only the trauma that might have happened to you in your early life, but the trauma that happened to your mother and to your grandmother or grandfather. This is epigenetics. In the Amazon, they call them generational curses that are passed down from one to the other. And when you clear the imprints from the energy field, it doesn't need to work its way through the body as disease. This is this is hummingbird medicine, work at the very subtlest of levels. But the hummingbird embarks on a sacred journey. And one of the tales that I heard around the campfire one time, and remember at night in the Amazon, there were no iPads and there were no digital devices you could entertain yourself with, so there was storytelling. And one of the medicine women said, "You know, Alberto, before we were born, we were all gathered in a great green field, grassy field. All of us were gathered there. And a very big angel came out and said, you know, this is going to be a very challenging time for the earth, for humanity. We need healers. There's going to be war and famine and chaos and collapse and confusion. We need shamans. Who wants to come?" And each and every one of us volunteered. We wanted to be part of the great transformation that in the Andes they call the Pachacuti, the end of time, the end of one era and the beginning of a new one. We came here with that mission. We said yes to that mission. And coming back to that great mission at this time of tremendous chaos and fear in the world is part of what we came here to do, is saying yes to your soul's calling. Now, we don't quite understand what our role is in that great mission, in that sacred task that we took on before we were born. A friend of mine asked me the other day, "Alberto, what are you working on these days? Are you working on a new book?" And I said, "No, I'm working on creating peace in the Middle East." "How are you doing that?" I said, "Well, I'm going into that stillness practice of hummingbird, of hovering even in the midst of flight, of deep stillness, and creating a standing wave of peace. And I know that that informs the quantum field to increase the probability of peace happening in Europe and in the Middle East. So today is a time for us to say yes to that hummingbird call, to that hero's journey. We have worked enough on what's wrong, and we have to continue it. It's a lifelong journey. My wife reminds me of this periodically. We need to continue on improving ourselves. But today the work is about going directly to the nectar, to the flowers, so that we can share that nectar with humanity and with the planet, with all creatures in the earth, to create that new era that we came here to facilitate. This is the hero's journey. It's a heroic journey. because everybody's saying to us, well, stay home. What are you going to do if the banks collapse, and if the Swiss don't bail the other banks out, and if the government, if no, we are creating a standing wave of peace by becoming peace, of healing by becoming healing, and by being healed, and by upgrading the quality of the information in our luminous energy field. The shamans do this by downloading version 2.0 of the codes for being human. The codes for human 2.0. Wow. Because part of what we're here to do is to take a quantum leap and become that new human that we've been waiting for. The shamans in the Amazon and the Andes call this new human Homo luminous, not Homo sapiens anymore, not thinking humans, but luminous humans, humans. Enlightened humans that can live in an enlightened fashion and can bring light and beauty to the great darkness that's happening in the planet today. This is the hummingbird journey. It's the journey to who you came here to be, to your greatest possibilities. And in doing so, you established a standing wave in the field that will allow all of humanity to take that leap also. And once you take that leap, that hummingbird journey, you embark upon it, you find that you will begin to grow a new body. Biologically, I'm not just talking about a leap in consciousness, but a biological leap where we will become that new species, where we will activate higher ordered neural networks in our highest brain, in our hummingbird brain, in the brain that understands quantum physics and beautiful music, and that can understand the experience of oneness, that we are interconnected with all of life. Once we activate these higher order neural networks, then we find that we can get our health span to equal our lifespan, that we can live long and die quick. This is a great formula. Instead of living long and dying slowly from illness and medicated, like so many people are dying today, and living a life that is infused with the sacred and with meaning. This is the sacred journey. But it requires leaving the slavery, leaving Egypt, the Egypt that we've all been trapped in, the metaphorical Egypt, the biblical Egypt, where we have been enslaved to a set of values and beliefs that have nearly destroyed all life in this planet. We have to embark on the sacred journey. The ancient Kabbalists say that when the Israelites left Egypt, that only 40% of them left. Moses had to say to them, look guys, it's only going to be 40 days in the desert, don't worry. It turned out to be 40 years. But 60% of them said, well, we're too old, we're too fat, we don't have enough money. What are we going to do? Being a slave is no fun, but we get a couple of weeks off a year. And only that small percentage left. And then they had to go into the depths of the waters, up to their nose. We're already there globally as a humanity. The water's right up here. And then the seas part. And then the miracles happen. And then we align ourselves with the miraculous and no longer with the ordinary. Today we have this invitation in front of all of us to become that new human, that Homo luminous, that is going to heal and age and die differently. And I'd like to share just very briefly an amazing experiment that's taking place in life, in the earth today, not the world, because the world is distinctly human, but in the planet. About 200,000 years ago, an evolutionary quantum leap occurred in which we lost two chromosomes. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 23 from mom, 23 from dad. That's 46. But at a certain point, we separated from the apes. They have 48, they have 24 and 24. And one of our chromosomes, number 2, became very, very big. And we can tell that this happened because at the very tip of your chromosomes, you have these structures that prevent the chromosome from uh, from shredding and flailing, so that we can continue to copy accurately. And these structures now are in the middle of the chromosome and not only at the end. So there are 4 of them instead of just 2 of them at the end. And so with chromosome number 2 becoming this very big chromosome, it allowed for the development of a higher brain and of consciousness. And the amazing thing is that this higher brain is programmed for infinity. This higher brain is programmed for longevity because we don't have a death program in our DNA. Humans don't have a death program. Every other creature in nature, except for whales and dolphins like us, don't have a death program. We are programmed for infinity, for very long lives and long health, if we choose to begin to create psychosomatic health by activating these higher brain regions. And this is basically the neuroscience of what's happening today as part of a great biological experiment that you and I are part of. And if we want to take part in this experiment, I call it the experiment of n is equal to 1. N, when you do a medical study or scientific study, is the number of people in your study. And you want to have a lot of people in it so that it's relevant. But today we're doing the experiment of n is equal to 1. My experiment is called Alberto, and your experiment is called you. And the amazing thing is that if you don't take part in the experiment, in growing that new body and becoming that new human and saying yes to your calling, if you don't take part in the experiment, you get to be in the control group. And the control group is that big fat bell curve of how people are getting sick today with dementia, with Alzheimer's, with Parkinson's, with heart disease, and with cancer. So I invite you to take part in that experiment of that new human, to say yes to your calling. This is what we came here to do, to dream together a new world into being, a new world that our children's children can be born into. I invite you to take that leap, to say yes, to go on that great journey, even though you may not know exactly what that destination is, but to know that it is your destiny. Say yes, the time is today. And the wisdom of the ancient ones, of the shamans, of the earth peoples, is available to us today. This is what I train my students to do. This is what our courses are about. They're about bringing together cutting edge brain science and the ancient wisdom of working with the energy field of the body, so that we can become that new human and we can help our loved ones to take that leap to health and to longevity themselves. So, Stefan, I'm going to pass it back to you. Maybe if there are any questions or comments that we may want to take on at this moment.
Thank you, Alberto. Yeah, there's a couple of questions, so let me just screen them, and let's start with the first one right here. Okay. So Tanya, she asks, I clearly feel that my soul is calling for something, but I cannot grasp it, understand it. Is there a way, a journey to understand what is my calling? What is my soul's calling for?
Thank you for asking that question. Really important question. Frequently, we want to get a sense of what our calling is before we embark upon it. But it doesn't work that way. You've got to embark upon it first, and then it's revealed to you. Because today we need a new story for humanity. We need a new map for the human journey. So today it requires that we say yes And at that point, then it begins to be revealed to you. And it is absolutely exquisite. So that's the critical point. We cannot wait until we're shown the map because it'll be too late. The time is now. And the minute you say yes and you take the first steps into the unknown, you join the hero's journey. And everybody else will begin to ask you, why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? Why can't you be normal, get sick and die like normal people do? That's not normal any longer. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Alberto. So next question, Nicoletta asks, how do I know if I'm ready to live the shamanic journey? Should somebody call us or something? How can we make sure that we are ready for this? Can disease be a sign?
Yeah, I know in my own journey, I kept saying to Spirit, I don't have enough time. I have two little children. I don't have enough money. And I was using my children as an excuse to God. And then I realized what I was doing, and I said, okay, I know that I don't have enough time, enough money, enough resources, two little kids. And the minute I said yes, my life acquired a a direction and an abundance that I always had to struggle with before.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alberto. And the question we usually always get is, can anyone learn this? Can anyone become a modern day shaman?
The I always like to ask the question: can anyone get healthy? Can anyone reach their fullest potential? And the question is that this is not for everyone. This is for a person that's willing to line their lives up behind their values and behind the sacredness of their journey. But today, so many of us feel so disempowered and so terrified. The you know, 10 years ago, almost to the day, I had a very bad diagnosis because as a medical anthropologist, I had traveled the jungles of the world. And I went to my doctors and they said, you better get in line for a liver transplant because your liver's dead. You have holes in your heart and parasites in your brain. And I said, oh my God, I better check into a hospital and wait for a liver transplant. But then I said, no, wait a minute. This is, I'm not going to go that route because that's the victim route. And I become a patient. I instead went to the Amazon. I took Western medication. I was lucky to be friends and working with some of the leading doctors in the world that with whom I work with energy medicine. So they guided me through the process of killing these parasites, which Western medicine is really good at killing things. But then I had to grow a new body, and I had to regenerate my body. And I have a new liver today, and a new heart, and a brain that I'm enjoying quite a bit. But it took defying my own fear and facing up to it and saying, no, I'm not going to continue the path of the victim. Even though I will use the resources of Western medicine, I don't want to become a patient. So I took the sacred route, and I'm in great health today.
Thank you, Alberto. Maybe a follow-up question that a couple of people asked, Jamila and Rose, for instance. How do we release the programs of fear, of sadness, of depression in our bodies?
Okay, let's take on the one for fear. So we have a fight or flight system in the body, and we don't know how to reset it in the West because this system is a feed forward system. So if you experience early life trauma like many of us did, or if your mother experienced trauma, remember that these chemicals, the stress chemicals, go through the placental barrier. It could be that it's not your drama or trauma, but still it's embedded in your field and your body. The body keeps score. and in the neural networks in your brain. So the first thing we learn to do in our shamanic energy medicine training is reset the fear program, reset the fight or flight, so that fear can become a warning system and not a state of being. Absolutely the beginning. Thank you for asking that question. Very important. And that the shamans discovered how to do this 5,000 years ago by resetting the balance, the energetic balance in the body. And then fight or flight would reset and your world would become safe again.
Thank you, Alberto. Maybe one more question. Mendy is asking, are ancient shamans different then than those of us who are doing the energy experiment now? Are we a continuation of the lineage?
Well, if you are in this call, it's because you sat around the fire in a former lifetime, maybe with a buffalo behind you, or maybe meditating in a stone temple above the snow line and doing the medicine work. And now it's time to return to that. But we don't need to rediscover all the ancient wisdom on our own. We have an ancient body of wisdom that's been offered to us by the high shamans that are the stewards of this wisdom. It doesn't belong to them. They've been the keepers of the wisdom, and they're so ready to pass it on to us so that we can help to heal the earth and to heal ourselves. So, Stefan, back to you. And what's next in our program?
And now students will have the opportunity to go on a journey to the upper world.
Great. This is a shamanic journey you're going to be going on to kind of get acquainted with that mission that you took on for yourself, that journey, that sacred contract that you entered into with spirit before you were born. And thank you for joining us today, and I wish you a sweet, sweet journey in this next part of the program and in your life.
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone. So thank you for all your great questions, and